Live. Okay, cool. All right, FlipTrader group. You know the deal. I'm going to wait for this thing to load up, and then we're going to get rocking and rolling. This is a new time for Brandon, 3 p.m. on Fridays. That way, Brandon's on his own, and we're not doubling up. Even though we're running the group member spotlight at noon on Fridays, it's still, I think this time will work. And if we find that it doesn't work, maybe we'll switch it again.
Hey, whatever, man. I'm down.
We gotta, we want to impact the most amount of people possible. So however we do that, we do that.
Right.
Just waiting for this thing to come up here, and we should be good. So, all right, FlipTrader group, welcome to the investor agent training. It's for real estate agents, and it's also for investors, or it's for investor agents who work with investors.
Yeah.
And today we're going to be talking about self-directed IRAs. Last time we talked about one, and that was super powerful, super helpful. Today we're going to talk about self-directed IRAs, not just how you use them, but how to encourage or open that option up for your investors who may be new to the market, or maybe they, bought something and they did a home equity line and they need to tap into more cash. The self-directed IRA is a perfect way to get people to tap into more cash that, you run it. It's self-directed. You do what you want with it.
Right. So how many, Ian, do you think on the channel? I always find this interesting because when I teach the class, I would say 99% of the class has never even heard of a self-directed IRA or knows what it is. So I don't know where our audience would be with that. So I think just to be, talk about the opportunity in itself is there are a ton of people who have some type of a retirement account.
Yeah.
Whether it's an individual retirement account, which is the IRA, or they have some type of a 401k, which is similar. Interestingly enough, what do you think the average person has in their retirement account? How much money do you think is in there?
No, that's too high.
Well, that's a trick question because we're blending people that are newer to the workforce with people that have been around.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to say 250.
All right. It's actually below $100,000.
Yeah, I had a feeling.
Yeah, it's below $100,000. So that's one thing. But like stocks, anybody that does long-term investing, especially when it comes to stocks and bonds, mutual funds, and it's the same thing with their retirement account. The one thing they don't look at every month is their monthly statement, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of people just kind of go, hey, it's tucked away. The challenge with a retirement account is what can you do from a contribution standpoint annually? And most 401ks and IRAs fall on this program where as an individual, the max is about $6,500 a year. Next year, it might go to $7,200. There's talk of that. I haven't seen that yet. But nonetheless, I guess the question is at $7,200 a year savings, are you going to be able to retire? Even if it's compounding, So a self-directed IRA, just so everyone knows, most people have a retirement account. A self-directed IRA gives you the opportunity to control where those investments can be made. So there's two things to this. One, you have to be able to roll or convert your existing retirement account or a portion of it into a self-directed IRA, which is fine. The challenge if you're going that route is, let's say you work for Boeing or Northrop Grumman and your retirement account that you have, they not only match your contribution, but that contribution is the company's stock. Well, they don't want you to sell stock. So I'm just letting you guys know that there are going to be people who are going to tell you you can't do it or you shouldn't do it. And it's primarily because they're making money managing your retirement account, right? Yeah. And that's really what it boils down to. So don't have a fear if you want to learn more about that you're talking to the right people. So when you get an opportunity to convert some of or all of your retirement account into a self-directed IRA account, now you have control over what you can invest in. And we can kind of break that down, Ian, if you want. But the biggest thing is you get to invest in real estate. So there are three things that your self-directed IRA account you're not allowed to invest in. The first is life insurance. So, well, why can't we do that? Well, if I could, I would take my retirement account and then I would buy life insurance for people I know who are getting ready to die. And that's not really cool. We don't want you to leverage it that way.
Yeah.
Second are collectibles. right? Because that's a very subjective thing when it comes to value, right? I don't know, what would you pay for an in the box GI Joe with a kung fu grip, right? So there's people out there that would spend 60 grand for that, and
Yeah.
there's people that wouldn't spend $1, and that's why you're not allowed to do that, right? And then the other third thing that you're not allowed to invest in is an S corporation. So when it comes to 1031 exchanges, like we talked about, and your retirement account, what the government basically says is as soon as you touch the money, it's now taxable, right? So in a 1031 exchange, we want to use an accommodator or a 1031 exchange company because they're the ones that are controlling where the money goes so that the government doesn't feel like you're touching it, which mean it's deposited in your account. So as soon as that happens, it's now taxable. And it's the same with your retirement account. So with a self-directed IRA, we're still going to have a custodian manage those things so that you're not touching it. But when it comes to the S corp, just by default, that's your corporation and your name, and you're touching the money, which is why you can't use an S corporation.
Yeah.
Everything else is fair game, believe it or not. And there is just a ton of people who have retirement accounts that don't even know this exists. And you touched on it earlier, which I think is great. How many of you have run across an opportunity and a real estate investment opportunity didn't quite have enough funds? So to your point, this is a great potential vehicle for you to create additional capital for you to make that investment. Because you can invest in LLCs. Think about this from a joint venture opportunity, right? Because now your self-directed IRA can invest in an LLC in that kind of a partnership. And again, when you have that manager managing the money, as long as the government doesn't feel you're touching the money, it's cool. Now, the goal for a retirement account, though, is you want it to get you to a place where you can retire, right?
Yeah.
So if I were to invest in real estate with my self-directed IRA, Ian, that means I'm not worried in the traditional sense about the maximum contribution because now there is none. So I can cash flow it. I can create appreciation. I can do all of these things to help pad my self-directed IRA down the road. And that's the beauty of it. The beauty of it is you can still treat it like your retirement account, but you get the opportunity to invest in real estate, which is awesome. Right.
Yeah. If that's how you want. I think that's the coolest part. And then there are self-directed IRA companies, like trust companies, that will help you move it. And I think I want to talk a little bit about that. There are companies that will help you move it, and then they'll maybe advise you or something, or they'll help you put it somewhere or whatever it might be. And that's cool too. So can you do it on your own, or do you have to use a company like that?
You have to use a company like that,
Okay.
especially, from an audit perspective. It's in the eyes of the government, Ian, it's still a separate trust account. It needs to be managed.
Yeah.
So we use a company called Entrust, ENTRUST. They're a national company. They're awesome. And if you're wondering about the cost, they have a really nominal monthly fee or an annual maintenance fee. And then there might be a small fee if you're writing offers and going under contract where they're, dotting the I's and crossing the T's to make sure everything is legit. That's the service that you're paying for with them, which is cool. And it could be as simple though as you naming your self-directed IRA account, right? Brandon Louder, self-directed IRA. It's as simple as that, really.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, and you can have multiple, entities that are owned under that account, which is even better.
Yeah.
So the trick question is, well, how many people do you know that do this? And you'd be surprised how many people really don't, especially the people that are wealthy.
Yeah.
Right. So, and that's awesome. Now here's another amazing benefit. We talked about the average person has less than $100,000. So how in the world do I buy that $350,000 investment property? Well, believe it or not, your self-directed IRA can get a non-recourse loan from a non-recourse lender, and it's typically 25% or more down. So if you do the math, take $100,000 divided by 0.75, you can maybe buy a $300,000 property pretty easily, or $350,000 property.
Yeah.
So it's a non-recourse loan. The rate might be a point higher than what the going rate is, but Again, we're talking about cash flow. If the cash flows, who cares what the rate is?
Yeah. Now, to the new investor, just tell them what non-recourse means. If there's a new investor watching, they want to know.
Yeah. So if you're a newer investor, a non-recourse loan means for whatever reason, things go bad and you have to default on that loan, they can't come back to you. And so what's important on the self-directed IRA side is, believe it or not, your retirement account also offers some protection for you, meaning if you file bankruptcy, your IRA account typically is protected as a trust, so you don't have to worry about it. So the reason your self-directed IRA requires a non-recourse loan is exactly that. There needs to be some protection for the account, and there are banks out there that offer this at reasonable rates. But again, it's an opportunity for you to leverage owning real estate and investing in real estate.
Yeah, and what's really cool is that I was just thinking about something when you were talking. Shit, I blanked on it. Damn, I totally forgot about it.
It'll come back to you.
It'll come back to me. Yeah.
It'll come back to you.
What I want to talk about is, without being a financial advisor, without being a tax attorney or a CPA or something like that, as a real estate agent, to be able to help your investors tap into more funds, helping them or suggesting to them or kind of teaching them about self-directed IRAs, like, how do you bridge that conversation? And obviously you can't go into super detail because you're not an absolute professional.
Right.
But like, we had a company here in Baltimore that was trained in that. And I would say to investors, hey, have you ever thought about a self-directed IRA? I don't know anything about it. I'm like, cool. Well, I have this contact, been doing a great job for a lot of our other investors. Can I connect you with them and you guys can talk about it? And half of those people wound up moving money over, except for the ones you're talking about, like they work at Google or they worked at Northrop or something. And they're like, wow, this is amazing. It's almost like, it's like free money. Like, I don't have to pay it back. I don't have to, I'm not getting taxed on it. I'm not getting charged interest on it or a penalty on it if I'm taking out of my standard 401k or whatever it might be.
Right.
So how does somebody bridge that conversation?
Well, let me first say what you just mentioned is a really a key point there. If you already have your retirement account and it's kind of out of sight, out of mind, let it do its thing. What could it really do if it was investing in real estate? Right.
Yeah.
Let me share a quick story if you don't mind.
Yeah, please.
So when I first moved to Los Angeles about 14 years ago, met my current wife, Tammy, and partner. I was the guy newer to town and didn't know anyone. And obviously she's been here and she knows people. And we started this trend where, like pre-Thanksgiving or right after Thanksgiving, we would go to Mammoth with a bunch of friends and take the kids skiing and snowboarding. Right. And I'll never forget this one year. Actually, it was 2011. So I had already been teaching CIS for a year. We are carpooling on our way to Mammoth. So there's four cars, there's four couples, and the other three couples, each of them either worked for Boeing, Northrop Grumman, big companies.
Yeah.
And there was a storm brewing, and we had to make a quick decision before we went up the hill to Mammoth on, do we try and beat the storm? Do we risk getting stuck? And we decided to get one of the last hotel rooms in the town just before you head up the hill, right? Long story short, we're all sitting around because we were thinking we were going to be in a cabin partying, got the coolers out, got into one of the hotel rooms, let the kids do their thing in another hotel room. And we sat around as adults, opened up some wine and beer. We were getting caught up. And everyone said, hey, Brandon, tell me about this investor class you're teaching. Tell us one thing you've learned. And I said, have you guys ever heard of a self-directed IRA? And none of them have.
Crazy.
Now, I'm sitting in a room full of friends who have been working for a company for a long time. They're savvy. They understand their retirement account. Never heard of a self-directed IRA. As soon as I described it, every one of them was lit up because they're all interested in making more money.
Yeah, of course.
And I asked them collectively how much they had in each one of their accounts. And I had 6 people there. What do you think collectively they had in their retirement accounts?
$5 million.
So close. Not real close, but 1.6 mil.
Okay.
1.6 mil. And every one of them was like, I want to invest in real estate, but we already own our home. I don't know that we have a lot of money for a down payment. How do we do it? And as soon as I started having the conversation with this group of people who already had a retirement account about the benefits, they were all in. And within 6 to 8 weeks, once I introduced them to Entrust and they figured out how to roll money into a self-directed IRA, Tammy and I created 4 more sales for ourselves. Not
Yeah,
only,
that's
right?
the big piece. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the big piece. There are
So that,
people out there with money that don't know how to work it.
right. So back to your, how does an agent do it? Well, an agent starts off by introducing it to their database and
Yeah.
ask the question, how many of you have a retirement account? And what's it earning? And you'll be surprised. Half the people will go, I don't know what it's earning because I don't
Yeah,
open
they
up
don't
the
know.
statement.
Yeah,
No
they don't
clue.
know.
Right. So it's just it's real interesting that this vehicle's been out there and how few people really know that it even exists or how it works.
Yeah, and I think the combined interest, let's say, from whatever they've been getting for the last 10 years,
Right.
in their retirement account, their standard retirement account.
Yep.
Once you roll this thing over and you're directing it and you
Yep.
can put it where you want to put, you'll see that thing probably, it might not double, but it might go 50% up or might go 25% up. You never know.
Yeah. I mean, let's have that conversation. So most of you that are investing in a stock or a bond, you're really only getting the benefit of appreciation. And there are a few, so don't get me wrong, 4 out of 10 stocks or bonds offer some type of a dividend. And a dividend is the same thing as cash flow in real estate, right? That means not only am I getting the appreciation on the stock, but if there was profit, I get a dividend. And what is that number? And right. But here's the thing. It's treated like ordinary income if you get paid the dividend. But most of the time, if they offer a dividend, they're not really paying you a check. They're letting you re-roll it into additional stock.
Yeah.
Right. Well, what are the benefits, compared to a stock does real estate investing have, even if it's a self-directed IRA? Well, your self-directed IRA can still depreciate the property. You still get equity gain if you got a loan, where you don't get equitable gain when you own stock, right? And so if you think of all the other additional benefits that you don't get in a traditional IRA or 401k that you get with a self-directed IRA, it's pretty substantial all the way around.
Yeah.
Right. So how do we do this? I think it's as simple as, do I understand it? Can I connect with a partner like Entrust who has great training and resources and tools for me to use, just like your lender does when they have, right, some special program and you get that flyer from the lender and you send it to your database? It's the same concept. And all you're trying to do is open, the door for opportunity, but you can't do that unless you open the minds and the eyes of the people that are your audience.
Totally. And we were talking about, before we went live, we were talking about like international investments.
Right.
One of the biggest things that we're doing here at FlipTrader is making sure that people are educated to make the best decisions for them.
Right.
And education is what it is. And so when we were thinking about, how do you make an international investment? How do you get funding for an international investment? Or we're going to, develop something in an international location.
Yep.
How do you get funding for that? Well, there's a YouTube channel that I watch all the time, which I'm not going to mention on here because he's not a sponsor yet, but he will be. And it talks all about international investing. It talks about moving money overseas, not moving it, but like investing money overseas, investing money in the Caribbean, South America, Europe. And you got to get educated on it. Mm-hmm. So I think the real estate agent, and we talked about this like probably our first conversation, the real estate agent that offers real value that you can tap into, that the investor or the client can tap into, is the one that will keep that client for a very long time, if not forever.
Yep.
Making people aware of the things that they don't know is one way to add massive value to your business and to your client. And it doesn't have to be just self-directed. It can be different ways of investing. It can be different asset classes. It can be new ways of analyzing a property that they didn't know, or a property that they're going to build on. They can add another bedroom here or another bathroom there and really up the property value or the ARV. that's like the bigger picture here is how are you actually adding value? And we're talking about it in a silo of the self-directed IRA here, which most people have never heard of.
Right.
But then it's like, well, what other types of value can you add to your clients that they don't know? And now you got, let's say, a list of 3. Well, how many people or how many agents out there do you think have that list of 3 that they're really marketing?
Right.
Because that's the big difference. Like, if nobody knows. Like, information isn't anything until it gets into action.
Yeah.
So sending out an email or making a newsletter that says, hey, here's a new strategy to invest in real estate. Did you know about this? And here's a company that we work with. So, if somebody wanted to go to a local CPA or an Intrust or somebody else, some other kind of trust company, and say, hey, this is what I'm doing. I've got a bunch of investor clients. Can I partner with you? Can I use your name? Do you want to sponsor my newsletter? Whatever it might be, get creative on it, because not only are you maybe getting somebody to pay for it as long as it's legal, but now you're adding a value and a direct line for them to get all the information they need to make a great decision. And the likelihood that they're going to go to another agent after you just told them, highly unlikely. They're coming back to you.
Yep. Yeah. And I think what's cool about an Entrust as a partner is they're already putting on seminars and webinars. And it could be, to your point about not necessarily being the tax advisor, or just simply inviting a few people to come learn about what it is.
Yeah.
It's still helping you make a connection with someone who should be the one giving them the advice, but you are offering them something of value. And I think we lose sight of even the word value.
Yeah.
To me, today means you have more choices and better choices for your clients than anyone else.
Yeah.
Right. I always go back. Do you ever see the movie My Cousin Vinny?
Yeah, of course.
Right. So do you remember that scene where they first get to town, or they wake up the next morning, they want to go to breakfast, and they go in to that restaurant and they get the menu, and there's only one choice.
I don't remember that, but yeah.
So it's a menu that just had the hams, the grits, and that was it. And they looked at each other like, what do you think? And they're like, yeah, let's do that, because that's
right. That's the only option.
It.
Yeah.
And so I think genuinely you have people on your channel who maybe are really good at the craft, and maybe it is wholesaling, maybe it is rehab and remodel, whatever. But that is the one choice.
Right.
And then when you have that identity, people will only go to you because they think that's the only thing you do. When you start broadening your horizons and you go, wow, go talk to Ian about self-directed IRAs, and go talk to Brandon, like, you become that go-to person, you automatically are creating more opportunities for them and yourself.
Yeah. And at that point, there's no competition, because like, if you go into a meeting with a potential investor, this person's been doing it, they want to level up their game, and you start dropping things that they don't know of, they've never heard of, or they don't know a lot about.
Right.
The likelihood that they're going to compare you to everybody else who's like, I can find you property, I can sell the property.
Yep.
Well, you're now you completely risen above that, and that's real value. If I were an agent today, I would be doing, and I wanted to pick up investor clients, I would do a real estate investor meetup or like a seminar.
Sure.
And I would line up a CPA, a tax attorney, and a trust company. And I would get the hell out of that on email. And I'd put it out on a little Facebook group that I create, that I'd invite a bunch of people to. I'd put it out on my social and say, hey, you want to know things you don't know right now? You want to know all the strategies? Because a smarter buyer is a better buyer, in my opinion, or investor in this case is a better buyer. And I think a lot of people have this idea that they don't want their clients to be too smart, because then they could do it on their own. But the fact of the matter is, if you look at like a Louis Vuitton bag, that leather's not any better than any other bag. It's just way more expensive, and it's not like from rare cows that, walk the Himalayas and, have all these crazy mystical powers. Is nothing better. It's branding and it's perceived value. No, that's not a great analogy, but I'm just saying, like, put 2 bags next to each other without the print on them, and you tell me which one is which. Now, I know there's probably some like super Louis fan out there that's going to be like, no. There's a direct feel. My wife's got a Louis Vuitton bag, and I know what I paid for that thing. And it's like a mortgage payment. And I feel that bag, and I'm like, this is junk. This is
Yeah.
it's not soft. There's nothing. I don't want to sleep on this bag. I don't want to hold this, like touch it.
Yeah.
It's, you know.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I think about that because when you're creating that type of value proposition for your business, your people need to know that you're the one that they can come to find out information to make the best decisions, because the investor that doesn't invest is the one that doesn't know enough about how to do it and has too much fear in the other category that says all these things are going to happen. But if you become the agent that can guide them through it and they trust, and that's giving them information so they can make really educated decisions, they will stick with you all day long.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I would guess there's really good people, and not just agents, that can find deals.
Yeah.
And they not only are good at finding deals, they might even be good at tying them up. And then the question becomes, you're so good at finding the deals and tying up the deals, did you have enough people in your database to have the buyer for the deal? Right. How many deals go sideways? So even along the lines of self-directed IRA and the point you're making about your marketing and creating a filter to attract the kind of people you want to do business with. Well, what if you knew enough about self-directed IRAs that you went to that big corporation's HR department and said, I can help your employees make more retirement money than you realize. Can I invite them to a free 1 hour workshop? Right?
Yeah, dude.
There. You might get 30, 35 people show up your little event.
It's a great lead gen. And you spent what? You probably didn't spend anything because you got your lender and your trust company and your CPA to buy donuts and coffee.
Yep.
And, you don't really have to do any presenting because you're not an expert. So you get up there and go, hey, everybody, thanks for coming. Today, we're going to educate you, and you're going to be able to leave here with more information than you had before to make great decisions in real estate investing or whatever. Then the professionals take care of the rest.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of it. So you don't, to your point, you don't have to think hard about it. It's just now what other tools do you have in your toolbox?
It's action. That's really all it is okay, you come up with an idea. Great. And how are you going to take action on it? That's really it. Because think about it. The person that moves their money into a self-directed IRA and takes no action, they're not a client of yours.
Right.
They're not doing anything. So if you're a real estate agent.
Yeah.
So dude, I really want to talk about that article that you sent me. And I just wanted to do it on mic. But let's wrap up with self-directed IRAs. Okay. And then let's just have a general conversation real quick about that, because that's another like big atom bomb.
Right. So the self-directed IRA, I would encourage anyone who's not familiar with it to obviously start getting familiar with it. For those of you that are familiar with it, I think the question needs to be, are you really leveraging the knowledge to create more opportunity for you and the people you know, right? Because I think the way the market is changing again, I really think there's going to be a lot more people interested in wanting to do investing in real estate, and they don't care about the rate. They don't care about the unemployment rate. They don't people still need a roof over their heads. Right. So I would say, yeah. And then if you want to reach out and you feel we should have a more in-depth conversation, then, get on the channel and let us know. And we can do that at some point, man. It'd be kind of cool to do a panel. Right.
Yeah. I want to get to that point. I've been talking to a couple other people, you included, where we'll do a panel discussion. Maybe we'll do one on like listing presentations, and we'll do one on investor stuff, and who knows?
Yeah. So let's talk about that article.
Yeah.
So when I sent it to you, what did you do?
You see what I wrote back. So Brandon sends me this article that says, mother of all commission suits filed in Illinois. This time it's by home buyers. So for all of you agents that haven't been living under a rock for the last 6 months, more than that, that there's this massive lawsuit that just got, the hammer went down on, and it was like almost $1.8 billion lawsuit.
Well, it's over $5 billion with, with the penalties and the additional charges, but
it's fraud, it's antitrust, and it's, what's the other one? Fraud, antitrust, and, that might be it. It's fraud and antitrust.
Well, there's ethics in there, and that's the NAR thing, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that's for home sellers. And we won't go into that because we talked about it last week or the week before.
Right.
Well, this one's for home buyers, and it's bigger. So if you think that the market is not going to get decimated, not the market, the industry is not going to get decimated by these type of lawsuits that are in the billions, you're wrong. So this is the time to bring up and understanding what you want for your business in the future. So I wasn't able to open the article because it's on Inman and I don't have an Inman account. So I just wanted you to talk about whatever you know about it, and then we can mix it up a little.
Yeah. So there's some interesting things, and I'm going to preface it with saying the lawsuit that just ended, the trial ended, where the plaintiffs found the defendants, National Association of Realtors, Keller Williams, guilty. That particular attorney immediately filed another lawsuit for sellers, but now naming other brokerages. Just so you guys know, there is still another lawsuit, even though this trial ended. What was interesting, Ian, is listening to everyone talk about what just ended, and the number and the reason they got to that number of 1.8 billion plus damages and all this. The statute of limitations was 5 years.
Yeah.
All right. So then the other day, this other lawsuit was filed on behalf of the buyers. So the plaintiffs are the buyers, different attorney in a different kind of lawsuit. What they're claiming is, had buyers known that the fee that their agent was getting paid was negotiable, even though the seller or the listing agent was paying it, had they known it was negotiable, they could have maybe saved money on the purchase of their house. That's the premise here. So it's a little flipped from what was going on with the seller's version. But here's what's interesting about this. $200 billion is what they're seeking in damages. $200 billion.
Damn.
And I'm really curious, and I'm waiting to hear from some other folks on this. What I'm curious about is what's interesting is it goes back to anyone who bought real property since 1996.
Oh, which is
some
before
of you might not even been born.
Yeah, that's before buyer agency, though.
Well, no, buyer agency started to happen around that time.
Okay.
Believe it or not. Actually, most loans were assumable up until 1997.
Interesting.
But I think the point of this was buyers weren't being educated by their agents that even the fee they were getting paid was negotiable. So now, to your point, agency or representation, what's interesting about that? So let's say, Ian, I'm asking you to sign buyer representation agreement. The traditional conversation is, hey, I want us to be on the same page as professionals. It's really important that we understand each other's expectations. This agreement is going to outline it, but it also allows us to have a conversation that most sellers are offering to actually pay the fee I would charge you on their behalf. Right.
Yep.
I normally get 3%, but sometimes the selling side is only offering 2%. And I want to make sure that you are aware that I'm expecting you to pay that difference of 1%. Yeah. Right. That's kind of like how it's always supposed to
go. That's how I was taught.
Right. So that sounds normal. Well, I find it interesting that they're suing on the behalf of the buyers. And for those buyers that signed that agreement, I don't know how that's going to work, because obviously they agreed to pay it whether or not the seller was offering it or not. Right. So this is going to be an interesting change. And I think that's what you were alluding to, is there's going to be a shift in the industry.
A big shift. Like that's a big shift. And so what's interesting, like the way that I was taught in 2012 was, and I don't think this is common practice even today, but I was taught you always get buyer agency signed. Always. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I didn't know any different. So I just always read through it with people, or they let them read it. And then when we got to those paragraphs that says the fee, the fee, they're like, well, I'm not paying you anything. I'm like, oh, what I was taught to say was, oh, don't worry, the seller pays me, or we split commission from the sellers paying the listing broker. Yeah, we split that. And in the event that, because I charge 3% on my buyer side, in the event that the seller doesn't pay it in full and they pay 2 or 2.5,
right,
we'll ask the sellers to make it up. And there were some rare occurrences where the buyer said, oh, don't worry about it, I'll pay it.
Right.
But it was very rare that the seller didn't. I mean, it was very rare that the buyer paid it, and the seller pretty much always paid it. And we did that. The way I was taught was, You do it in a seller concession. You put in a bunch of stuff in seller concession and you're 0.5% in there. Now, we weren't selling $2 million houses back in Maryland. So, you know, a half point is $1,500 or $2,000. Whereas
Right.
like in LA, it could be $7,500 difference. And that means something to somebody, or it's a lot more significant. Not that $1,500 isn't, but it's a lot more. 7,500 is a lot more. And like what I'm trying to understand is like, where is the buyer defrauded in that? Is it that, and I think, and I always thought this, that it's weird that the seller pays me because I represent this guy over here. Is it that?
No, I don't even know that it's defrauded as much as it's a non-disclosure thing.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is what are you telling people? And I mean, to be fair, I was taught how to run a business and that I needed to make X amount of dollars and to be profitable.
Yeah.
And so there are those that have YouTube channels, and it frustrates me to no end to hear these industry experts, seasoned even, say, well, the commission's always been negotiable. Well, yeah, no shit. It's always been negotiable to you.
Right.
We're talking about 1.8 million licensed agents and how were they trained to have a conversation? So
right.
I think to be fair, we have to look at the bigger picture, which is there are certain circumstances that there are agents that are licensed that don't do a very good job. And that's a reflection part of it.
Yeah.
But I think the argument really is, okay, most of the time we're negotiating to go under contract.
Right.
And there's nickel and diming going on for whatever reason. It's just the way it's been. And so the question becomes, what is the right way to have the conversation with the buyer about that fee? Now, because there could be a same argument. You want to know how many of my commissions I've had to whittle down just to keep a deal together?
Of course.
Right. So to be fair, it goes both ways. And that's what I find interesting about this whole thing. I don't know how you're going to prove all of this because I think they're piggying back the seller lawsuit.
Yeah.
It
just doesn't seem as, I mean, yes, the number's way bigger. It just doesn't seem like what would the buyer be negotiating? You know what I mean? Like if they're sitting with me and they knew that it was negotiable, what would they be negotiating with me?
So Ian, you told me you're getting 3% co-broke, but it's not coming out of my pocket, right?
Yep.
So I'm role playing with you here. So if you're getting the 3% for your services, obviously I find value in that because I'm not getting paid anything. Okay. Well, now we're on the same page, but now we found a house that I like and we're $3,000 apart.
Yep.
So the question becomes, are you the agent that says, hey, we're $3,000 apart. You need to come up with 3,000 or we need to go find you another property? Or are you the agent that says, well, listen, I'm getting 3% and I really want you to have the deal and I can meet you halfway and split it and la-da-da-da. We're not talking about that scenario. We're talking about the scenario where Ian, the agent, is saying you're SOL and you're shit out of luck. And the buyer now has remorse or regret that they didn't get the house of their dreams because your commission was in the way. That's
fair.
That's
or that your commission was available to throw in to bridge the gap.
Yeah. So it all started, and I don't want to single out Redfin because there's a lot of, discount brokers out there, and this has been going around for years, but Redfin really exposed it in a way because what they started doing on their website that they no longer do now, just so you know, but they started this with the buyer rebate program.
Right.
Because they knew, hey, the other side's offering 3%, but if you use one of our Redfin agents, we'll rebate you whatever that is up to a certain amount of dollars. And that's how they were dangling the carrot to get their own buyer leads, right?
Yeah.
But that set the tone for the buyers to start asking those questions. Well, wait a minute, you're getting paid 3%. Here's another interesting approach. So you're going to list my home. It's $1 million. We all agree there's a certain amount of effort you have to put in, just like the seller does, right? So let's just say I'm going to pay you 2.5% to sell my $1 million home.
Right.
But my friend John down the road has a $3 million home. Would you say that you're going to put in the same amount of effort?
Same amount of effort.
So why do you have to get $40,000 for selling his home, right? And that's what I don't think everyone realizes, where there's the potential to have a conversation about, if it's the same amount of effort and it's $2 million more, why should I pay you that much more for the same amount of effort?
So I completely agree with that. The same amount of effort that goes into a $250,000 listing, if an agent's really good and they're doing their job,
Yep.
and they don't just put the sign in the yard and put it on the MLS.
Yep.
You remember that Diana Kokoska script from Bowl where she go, other agents are going to do the 3 Ps. You know what those are? No? Okay, well, let me tell you. They're going to put a sign in your yard, they're going to place it on the MLS, and they're going to pray that you come in or someone else comes in and sells their house.
Yep.
I'm like, oh, that's a cool line. I like that.
Right.
But yeah, I had this conversation with my buddy who's selling a house in the $1 million range. And I said to him, he said, give me your advice. And I said, if you want my honest advice, I 100% do not believe that your listing agent will justify getting paid $50,000.
Yeah.
That's a shit ton of money.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah. And I said, and by the way, that's just the listing side. The other side's going to get, whatever, 2.5% of that. Like they're going to get $45,000 or $40,000.
Right.
Do you want to spend $90,000 to sell the house? And he was like, fuck no. And I said, yeah, dude, because that listing agent, if they lived in a different town that had $200,000, average sale price, and they're still a decent listing agent,
right,
they're still going to do a video. They're still going to post it on social. They're still going to do some flyers. They're still going to most agents aren't going to circle prospect and do all that shit. They're not. So really, what do they deserve? And even the buyer agent side on a $150,000 house, does the buyer agent deserve $4,500?
So when I teach the negotiating class, one of the things that if you're an effective negotiator, is you're sizing certain things at situations. And one of those things, the primary thing, is the market, meaning where is the power?
Right.
Well, where's the power been in the market for the last 10 years? Buyer or seller side? It's been the seller side.
Oh, seller side. Yeah, yeah. Well, it depends on where you are, because there have been some buyers that are.
All right. So here's the trick question based on the last 8 years of a healthy real estate market.
Yeah.
It's been seller sided.
Yep.
So does the value of an agent appear to be less value because the market demand has been so easy? And what's the opinion of the consumer going to be when it becomes a seller market and there's a ton of inventory and nothing's selling?
Right.
Do you find any more value in your agent? Because right now, you could argue it's been an easy button. And I could say as a homeowner, listen, the market's been so hot, Ian, all you had to do is list it in the MLS and we got 20 offers. Why am I paying you? That's a great argument.
Sure. That's legit.
But what happens when my house sits on the market for 6 months and you as the listing agent, you have holding costs, right?
Right.
What do?
Well, that's the cool part, is I think it's going to expose a standard that must go higher for all agents.
Right.
And that when you ride the wave, the wave can take 50 surfers along.
Right.
But when the waves are 2 feet wide, you can only take one surfer along. So agents are going to have to work for that shit. They're going to have to find new ways to market and to get property, the value of a property, not monetary, but the actual, intrinsic value of a property and the selling features of a property out there to more people in a really creative way, versus the MLS just kind of sells it. So I completely agree. But it can't be like a wave that says if it's a big seller's market and we're getting 20 offers per property, then agents shouldn't get paid, versus, the other side of the market where it's hard to shit to house, interest rates are up and agents are working their asses off. I get that there's an average between those and a balance.
Yeah.
But I still think agents, in my opinion, of the agents that I know, they, especially in the higher end markets, they're doing nothing more, unless they have a great brand online. They're doing nothing more than the agents selling $100,000 houses in middle of Kansas. They're not.
We don't teach agents really how to have a more professional conversation. And it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. What options do you have?
Yeah.
Are you even presenting your seller options? Hey, Ian, your home is worth between 950 and $1 million. And my fee structure is based on your level of motivation.
Yeah.
You want to price it a little more aggressively so that we're attracting more people and things happen quicker. I'm willing to take less. But if you're wanting to price it to push us 60, 90, 120 days on market, I just want you to understand my fees more.
Yeah.
Like what's wrong with that conversation? Right.
Nothing.
If Tammy were here to defend herself, Tammy's my partner. For those of you who, my wife and my partner, I still go on listing appointments with her, and we do have the conversation around our fee being negotiable. But I will tell you, right, when you give somebody the choice to take a lower fee, what do you think they're going to do?
They're going to take a lower fee.
Right. So I think you have to get good at it. And where I was going with this is, I tell most people that I have a pain in the ass fee. So
Yeah.
even though you want a little bit lower of a fee and I'm willing to have that conversation with you, I want you to know that you have some responsibility as the seller. And I hope you don't mind that we charge extra for being a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
And usually people laugh just like that. And they go, what does that mean? And I go, listen, you're worried about what you're going to pay me when there's still a lot of work to do. And the last thing that I want to do is be the bad guy in your eye because you're not giving me the things that I need to do my job.
Right.
And how many agents have that conversation?
Not many.
Right.
But that's why I'm saying these lawsuits are actually a good thing because it raises the standards. And if you're an agent that wishes, like it's that old adage, it was at my CrossFit gym. Don't wish you were easier, wish you were better, or make yourself better. And I feel like, the buyer lawsuit really goes through, like the one we were talking about, the latest one goes through or it gets thrown out or whatever. I think it raises awareness to say, where are your standards for your business? And can your business survive a downturn? Can it survive a shift? And I remember Gary Keller talking about it in 2015 at whatever the one is in
family reunion or mega camp.
Yeah, mega camp in Austin. And he said a shift is coming in 2018. Prepare your business. And I'm like, I'm taking that shit seriously. This guy's not trying to scare us. We're his agents.
Yeah, he's probably in the know, right?
He's with the Illuminati. He knows what's happening. Like he sees happening. I'm just kidding. For any conspiracy theorists out there, relax. And so I said to Meredith, we gotta figure out how our business survives a shift.
Right.
So you read the book Shift and you think about all your business plan and who you're going after. And what we did was we targeted in 2017. We targeted that 50% of our deals were going to be investor deals.
Okay.
And so we built an investor book of business.
Right.
And those investors got smarter as we educated them.
Right.
And they bought more and they bought more. And then they were referring us to their friends. And pretty soon I wasn't doing a lot of marketing. In fact, we didn't do a lot of marketing for lead gen at all because our referral base was so good because we were educating people. And I can't tell you that I didn't do marketing at all.
Right.
We did. And we had like Boomtown for our agents, stuff like that. But my book of business was straight up referral, even to this day. And I haven't sold real estate for a couple of years. I still get a lot of referrals because my value proposition, 3 E's, copy them. They're not trademarked. Energy, effort, and education.
Yeah.
And I did that because I can't control the market. I can't control the buyer. I can't control what it's going to sell for. But I can control what I'm going to bring to the table, and I can bring energy, effort, and an immense amount of education to every client that I represent. And
I'll have to send you the new logo.
Yeah.
For our verified product.
Yeah.
I'm putting it in the private chat because I can't put it in the comments. But that's our new slogan. For those of you listening, it says, we're upping our standards, so up yours.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I remember that. Yeah.
But I do agree with you. I think it's time. And if I were an investor listening to this, I would probably be saying, do I have the right agents who are an extension of my goals and my business?
Yeah.
And can I hold them to a higher standard? What can I do to help them get educated? Because most investors, they're busy, man. They're doing things and
Yeah.
And I get that part of it, but I think part of the service you're offering, which, I really respect and appreciate, is that you're trying to help everyone up the game a little bit. And I think it's needed for sure.
Yeah. And I think getting smart about objection handling and understanding what a seller's objections are and not having some snappy scripted comeback. but that's actually, you can still be scripted, but you have to memorize, internalize, and then conversationalize that script. And that's how I teach scripting is I can speak to you in a full script. However, you won't know it's a script because I've conversationalized it, which is not a word. But I remember sitting. Cool. Yeah, it sounds cool. Yeah. I remember sitting down at a listing appointment once, and this guy says to me, all right, man, well, we really like you. You got a lot of energy. You're very intense. And I want you out there hustling my house. I know for a fact that you're going to hustle for my house. And he said, but the other agent was like at 4% total. And I said, and I knew the broker who would do that. And I was like, right. Oh, I know it's this broker. And he goes, how'd you know? I said, because their value proposition just isn't there, man. So they got to undercut pricing, but my value proposition is there. And he goes, well, here's the other thing. He also told us that he'd get us more for the house. And I said, what'd he tell you he can get you? Because this was like a 420, 425 price point. He goes, he told us he could get us 450. And I went, really? What's his check look like? And in that moment, I was like, oh shit, I probably messed this one up. The guy goes, what do you mean? And I said, well, if the guy told you he could get you 450 and I'm telling you the comp show 420, then he's clearly buying the house or he's lying to you. Mm-hmm. So are you going with an agent that tells you the truth or one that's lying to you? So do you have his check? And the guy goes, no, I don't have his check. And I went, interesting. Yeah. So he's discounting his price, he's discounting his commission and inflating what he can get you to just make you happy.
Right.
And I'm telling you the truth and it doesn't make you as happy, but I'm the guy that can get it done.
Yeah, I like that. My go-to was always
it worked a lot. It worked a lot.
I like that better than mine. Mine was always, do you remember that girl you liked in high school and you would tell her anything just to get her to go out with you?
Right. Yes. Yeah.
Right? That's
same thing.
Does it feel that way? Right. That's
you feel that. Yeah, exactly. And so I call it a classy trashy. I would classily trash other agents because I knew they were full of it and they were just trying to get, it's like they're just trying to get the girl in high school. That's all they're trying to do.
Yeah.
And I said, look, at the end of the day, whether you go with me or not, this is about a long-term relationship because I run a referral-based business. And if I don't give you a 5-star service and get a 5-star review from you, I failed, regardless of whether I get paid or not.
Yeah.
And if you don't refer me to your family and friends, my business doesn't continue the way that it has for the last 6 years.
Yeah.
At that point.
Well, and it's funny because this is a really small world, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, your reputation and that stuff is, I think it's important and it's critical.
So, yeah, it's huge.
Yeah.
So I think one day we should do some like listing objections, buyer appointment objections, because listing appointment objections, there are 10 of them. They're the same 10 every single time. You have to know them because nothing's going to be new. So the agents that are like, man, I'm so nervous walking to a listing appointment. Seller's going to battle with me. And I have a very unique listing presentation, which if anybody wants it, just email me at support@fliptrader.com. I'll send you this listing presentation. But when we start to build out and run our membership program, which is coming up, by the way, I'm starting to tease it this week, a little bit more next week. It's going to be a Black Friday deal. I'm going to give you and teach you through that list presentation because it's very psychological based, the way that I go in, the way that I prep the email before I get there, the way that I walk in, and what I open up in my listing presentation that literally erases all objections and frequently asked questions in that moment and takes all power away. If you want that, I will give that to you, and Brandon and I will talk about it because I want to get your take on it.
Yeah, I would love that.
I got it from Lance Loken, by the way. Like he said to me, I paid for a coaching session with him, back in 2016. And he said to me, man, your listing presentation needs work. And I said, yeah. And he goes, I want you to think about if your biggest challenge is that sellers are objecting to certain things, then you know what those things are. It's commission, it's price, it's timing, it's all the, upgrades or updates.
Right.
I'm going to sell it with another agent. I'm going to sell it myself. I'm going to use the other agent that helped me buy. It's all the same shit. But
Yeah.
if you can figure out a way to diffuse that bomb right in front of that listing appointment, you will have a higher close ratio. And I'm like, okay, so if I build this and you'll critique it, and he goes, absolutely. So I built this whole thing out, and he was like, that's it. That's
Yeah,
it. When they look at that and they know, what they're thinking, they're like,
Yep.
shit, I'm
Yeah.
dealing with a professional.
Yeah, and I agree, because you're taught when you're a real estate agent in general, in a completely different way, right? You're not taught to go in and blindside them with something that they're not expecting.
No,
Yeah,
no, you messed the whole deal up. You messed the whole thing up.
it's the normal dog and pony show, and I think it's nauseating for most people, to be honest. So
Yeah, it is. It is.
So
All right, dude.
all right.
I thought we were going to go like 30 minutes on this one, but here we go. I think it was very valuable. I think people, there's a bunch of people that have commented. I can't see them, and I can't see it on my phone, which is strange.
Hi, everybody. Yeah.
If you jump back in there and answer any questions that are there, I will.
Okay.
Oh, look at that. I can put the comments up. Oh, that's awesome. All right. Now I know. Love this. Okay.
There you go.
All right.
All right.
That's the end of that. All right. FlipTrader audience.
Hey, real quick.
Yeah.
Wait. Sorry.
Yes.
Anybody that's a veteran out there, we appreciate your service. Love
Absolutely.
you guys 100%. Just want to make sure we acknowledge that.
Yeah. To all of our veterans in the FlipTrader community, thank you so much.
Yeah.
You know what's interesting, dude?
What?
I don't think people understand Memorial Day and Veterans Day. I don't think they understand it enough. And I honestly didn't a couple years ago. So I researched it. I'm like,
right.
It's not a happy holiday. It's in mourning. It's honoring those who have served and given their lives. Like, it's
not only that, the one word that we've seemed to gotten away from is respect, man. Just respect and there's families, man, that have generational part of it, and so God bless all you guys. Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that. I appreciate that, man.
Yep.
No, I didn't serve. I'm just saying I appreciate that in the general vicinity of people who served.
Right.
Okay, cool. Brandon, thanks so much.
Yeah, man. We'll see you on the next one. Everybody have a good weekend.
Thanks, everybody.